Junior Seau. Now, this team of scientists who analyzed his brain tissue have discovered he had a debilitating brain disease. Doctors believe the former NFL all-star linebacker who took his own life, that was just last May, had this disease. It's known as CTE, caused by 2 decades of taking hard hits to his head. I'm joined now by Chief Medical Correspondent and Neurosurgeon, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and Drew Findling, criminal defense attorney, who is involved in a class action lawsuit, players suing the NFL. So, gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Sanjay Gupta, let me just begin with you. I mean, I remember this story broke on the show in May, his suicide. Now that we're learning about this debilitating brain disease, can we connect any of this?
I think we can say there's an association now. You know, what people always want is the direct cause and effect relationship, and it's just a really hard thing to establish in science. It takes decades to establish that sort of thing. Even between something like smoking, for example, and lung cancer, those things took a long time to establish. The same thing here. But we do know there's an association. We do know that this CTE that you're describing, chronic traumatic encephalopathy,
what is that?
You can almost describe it like an Alzheimer's-like thing that's happening in the brain.
Wow.
Typically, you think of that happening in people in their 7th and 8th decades of life. This is happening in people much younger. And we know that it's associated with hits to the head. We don't know of any other cause for this sort of thing. There is this triad, Brooke, we talked about this, you know, I remember reporting this with you. It was really sad, but, you know, this depression, the anger, impulsivity, and memory loss. Those 3 sort of things often are what mark, you know, CTE, and that's what people, family members, friends often describe when someone's alive. And again, as hard as it is to talk about, he shot himself in the chest, as did Dave Duerson. Dave Duerson left a note saying he shot himself in the chest because he wanted his brain studied, and people surmise that that may have been the same thing with Junior Seau.
I want to get to I see this brain here, and I want to get to it in a minute and talk a little bit more on the minutia about what this is and what they've found. But Drew, to you, you know, as we mentioned, you're involved in one of these cases. Why sue the NFL?
Well, you sue the NFL because there seems to be a body of work that was available to the NFL. In 2002, the relationship between CTE and the death of Mike Webster, a Hall of Fame football player, was brought forth by an independent physician. From 2002 to 2007, the NFL did a study with different physicians advising the NFL, and the NFL was, quite frankly, dismissive of that study, referring it in very unnice terms, what they thought of the science involved. So because of that dismissiveness and the fact that the NFL has been flourishing during this period of time, this lawsuit is brought on behalf of players that are saying, hey, we sacrificed ourselves physically for you, and we need to be compensated like any other workforce where there's some disease attributed to the workplace.
I mean, you think of the NFL, it is an incredibly profitable enterprise, right? But these guys, I've talked to some of them, they get their bell rung week after week. We don't know what the results, I guess, of some of these cases, what may happen, but how could this impact the NFL in general?
Well, this is what I would say. Since '09, when the NFL came up with a certain number of rules to govern how head injuries are handled, the NFL has stepped up. We're really looking historically, and the reason we're looking historically is these players were the foundation of this industry that's spinning off not millions, but billions of dollars.
Billions.
And it's this foundation, these people that constitute the foundation, that need to be compensated. Now, you know, I say this to the viewers. Who can really name their favorite 10 offensive linemen in the last 25 years? Nobody can name any of these guys.
That's a good point.
But yet these guys were just in full physical contact with their heads for years and years and have sustained terrible injuries.
Sanjay Gupta, we have the brain. Tell me what was found exactly?
Well, you know, the interesting thing, first of all, they relate this to concussions a lot, but it doesn't, what we're learning, it doesn't have to be concussions per se that can cause this thing in the brain, CTE. It can be these subconcussive hits, which I think Drew is alluding to. You know, the hits where a player gets right back up, seemingly nothing's wrong. They can accumulate over time in terms of impact on the brain. So, you know, in the case of Junior Seau, we're talking about a very specific area of the brain. In this area, that the hippocampus, it's called, and it's often responsible for memory, storing memories, and that's why forgetfulness is one of the cardinal symptoms of this. But I saw this firsthand as well, Drew, at some of the labs where they were actually looking at this, and I want to show you the specific thing known as tau protein. Tau protein is something that we typically think of with regard to Alzheimer's disease, but look at that. Sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. On the left, a normal brain. I don't know, Brooke, if you can make this out, but those brown spots.
On the bottom left?
Yes, on the bottom right now, the brain was CTE.
Okay.
Those brown spots, that is the protein that accumulates in the brain. And again, you see this with Alzheimer's-like diseases, but here we're seeing it in someone in Junior's case, 43 years old.
We'll follow it. Gentlemen, thank you.